Hey, how's it going? Ben Jenke with Home Vocal again, and I wanted to quickly walk you through a basic purchase and sale agreement. And the reason I want to do this, so it kind of gives you an idea of what your offer will entail and some things that you can be thinking about as you move through the process. And this is the actual one. This is the Idaho Real Estate Purchase and Sale Agreement. It's called the RE21. And these do change from year to year just a little bit, just so you know. So if you're watching this in 2030 by chance, it might be a little different, but just want to let you know that up front. So in the offer here, we've got just the listing information, which company is listing the property, the selling agent, which company is the buyer's agent on the property, the buyer, so your name would go here, the information about the property here. Now this is where you can get into some of the negotiation. Obviously we're going to be negotiating on price. So you put your purchase price, your offer price right here. How much earnest money you're going to have. Now earnest money, if you don't know already, is just the money that you put up front just to show that you are serious about purchasing the property. You have to put something up front. It could be $1. They're not going to take you too seriously, obviously, if it's $1, but a good amount, roughly, is maybe 1% of that, of the purchase price or more, would be kind of a roundabout number. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis, and obviously what you can do on your side and how competitive this home is. So if it's a really competitive home, there's 5 other offers potentially coming in, this would be a good way to show that, hey, you're really serious about it, and move this up a little bit as far as the dollar amount here. The earnest money isn't deposited typically until the offer is accepted. Now with short sales, we're going to be holding on to the earnest money for quite a while before we deposit it. We've got to hear back from the bank for third-party acceptance. With bank-owned properties, a lot of times they want that check to be written out to the title company or to the listing company right up front. So it really depends on the scenario, but typically you write out to our brokerage here. We hold it until it is accepted, is deposited into our trust account, and then you get that credited back to you at closing. Okay. This talks about your financing. If it's an all-cash offer, this is the section here. This is your basic loan layout. It talks about how much your loan is going to be if you have a first and a second. Typically, you'll have a first. What type of loan? And just kind of gives them a layout, and not to exceed a certain percentage. So if you get pre-approved at 5% and then you end up getting 7%, we can put 6% in here and you wouldn't be obligated to move forward with that. This just says that you have or will apply for a loan right here. Kind of gives some basic outline here of whether you're already pre-approved for that. So I really recommend that you would be pre-approved at this point in time when you're making an offer. It makes a huge difference in the seller's eyes of how serious you are. And then we go to page 2 here. Other terms and conditions. This is where we'd write in other contingencies if you have to sell your home. For instance, before you can purchase this home, we talk about the home selling contingency in here. If it's a short sale, we have a whole separate form on the short sale that we'd add as an addendum on this property or on this offer. Additionally, specifically included in the sale and excluded. So if they have a refrigerator, I know it's a common one to make sure that you include in here if you want to add that into the price, since that is still considered personal property, and they're kind of negotiable on that, deal by deal, case by case. Excluded, if they have a big hot tub in the back that you don't want, that's personal property, you want to make sure you put excluded on here. This talks about the mineral rights, the water rights, the title conveyance, the title information, just saying that the seller will get that title information to you within X amount of business days after they get that. Talks about the title company, who will be the escrow and title company in the transaction. We'll be servicing that part. Typically most of those are pretty priced just about the same. It's just a matter of service on that. Talks about the standard coverage owner's policy, extended coverage, and we'll go through these when you're writing an offer in detail if you have questions on these. And this is the inspection section. Buyer chooses to or not to have an inspection. for most of the time, we'd be checking that one obviously, and how many days you have to get that done. And this talks about the whole process after the inspection's done, of how we're going to work out repairs and etc. Lead-based paint, if we have to worry about that, past 1978. Mold disclaimer, square footage verification, seller's property disclosure form. When a seller sells their property, they're supposed to fill out what is called the seller's property disclosure form, condition form, and it essentially lays out what they know from their vantage point, what is working and what is not working with the property, and what's included in the sale and what's not included. So that's a whole separate form, a 4-page form. This talks about if it has CC&Rs on the property, so we'd look up those and fill those in here, what those association dues are per year, and if there's a transfer fee. This talks about a home warranty plan, if that's going to be part of the deal, who's paying for that. This talks about the typical closing cost schedule, appraisal fee, closing escrow fee, your lender fees, title insurance, and some other septic inspections, fuel in the tank, if there happens to be a propane tank or something like that on the property, we'd be talking about those in that area. If you want to work in your closing costs, this is where we would do that. So let's say your lender, we want to work $3,500 into the offer essentially to help pay your closing costs. And the reason you would do that is so you wouldn't have to come to the table with $3,500 in closing costs. You can essentially finance those into your offer. And to the seller, they're just going to essentially take that off of your offer price. Let's say you offer $200,000. They're going to say, okay, well, their offer is essentially $3,500 less than that because we're going to be paying for their closing costs, their loan origination fee, their escrow fee, etc. So we'll talk more about that and your particular situation on that. Some people don't need that, but some people do. Just says whether you're going to occupy the property, yes or no. If you're an investor, we'd be checking that one. We can do a final walkthrough before it actually closes, just to make sure the property is in the same condition, the repairs have been done, if there's any repairs that need to be done, the house is still there, didn't burn down, or etc. We want to do a walkthrough before we close. Next page here, this is just some basic layout and definitions of the agreement. Okay, so we'll go through those: business days and business hours. If there's an earnest money dispute, it talks about that right here. And then this page just says, lays out whether you're being represented as a customer or a client in the transaction, which we'll talk more about that. The closing date, so you can obviously offer, with your offer, put a projected closing date in there. They could counter offer to that, etc. So we got to find a time that works for everybody on that. Who the closing company is going to be again. Escrow company. When you'll take possession. When things will be prorated. Everything will be prorated as of closing typically. So we type closing in there. Some more definitions of the agreement. Then we want to give them a time to respond by. So if you offer, let's say on a Monday, or you put this offer in on a Monday, depending on the situation, maybe we'd give them till Tuesday at 5 to respond. Or if it's a bank, it may be Thursday at 5 to respond to the offer. And then page 7 here is just your signatures and your information here. And that is it. So what we would do is we'd fill all this out. If there's any addendums, we would add that to this offer. We'd send it into the listing agent. They would present it to the seller, and they would either accept it, reject it, or counteroffer to it, and we'd move forward from there. So that's kind of a basic walkthrough of the offer. Hopefully that helps you up front understand some of the things, especially if you haven't purchased a home before. Pretty much everything's negotiable on there as far as who's paying for what the price is, earnest money, closing time, all that. So hope that helps, and we'll talk to you soon.